Take me into your loving arms. Kiss me under the light of 1,000 stars. Place your head on my beating heart. I'm thinking out loud. Maybe we found love right where we are.
Iwa-chan pulled into the garage and shut off the engine. We got out and headed for the front door. Iwa-chan seemed to be caught in his thoughts the whole drive home. I guess the surprise really is something to be surprised about, huh? Iwa-chan's hand stopped at the handle of the front door. I looked at him questioningly and he just sighed. "All right, prepare yourself," he warned, pulling open the door. I'm guessing he already knew what was coming. I spotted Darby sitting in front of an unrecognizable figure. "Welcome home, you two." Darby beamed, getting up from the couch. Now that Darby moved, I could see the figure clearly. It was a mature-looking girl whose appearance resembled that of Suna's. "Surprise," Darby said, framing the girl in her hands. "Shit, I knew it." "Who is this?" I asked, looking between Darby and Iwa-chan. "My sister, Shailene," Iwa-chan answered dully. "I finally get to see my little brothers again." Shailene's voice rang out through the living room. Her voice was soft enough not to be jarring, at least not as much as the rest of the family. She must get it from Thomas since his voice is the softest out of everyone's. "This must be the boy you've been so enthusiastic about." She spoke to Darby, then smirked my way before walking over. I stood in place, shyly. She got uncomfortably close, eyeing me from head to toe. She hummed, narrowing her eyes. "I don't see what's so special about this boy." I'd be lying if I said I wasn't hurt, even just a little. "Sure, he may be pretty cute, but that's not saying much. I mean, look at Hajime." To be honest, I didn't really know what to make of this. "Pay no mind to her," Iwa-chan told me, pulling me past her with his arm wrapped over my shoulder. "What? No hug for your dear elder sister?" Shailene cried out, crocodile tears. "Just as grumpy as ever, I see. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Dinner will be ready soon, so make sure you're prepared, boys. We can catch up during dinner, Hajime." Iwa-chan sighed and continued ignoring her. He dragged me off to his room and shut the door behind him. "That girl can be really annoying. Man, this week is going to be tough. You don't talk about her much." "Yeah, that's 'cause I usually prefer avoiding conversations about my family," he said, opening the window to the room. The light air of the summer night poured its way in, making the room twice as comfy. "Don't take what she said to heart, 'cause you are special, Toru," Iwa-chan said in a deep tone, walking over to me. My cheeks flushed a deep red. He lifted my head with two of his fingers and captured me in a deep kiss. I felt myself melting into it. Warm shivers coursed through me as his lips worked mine. I wrapped my arms around his neck, trying to narrow the non-existent space between us. He placed a hand just above my waist and pulled me into him, connecting our bodies. Being the extreme heat machine that Iwa-chan is, I was warmed from head to toe. Our kiss started out slow and simple, or at least that would be the way Iwa-chan would describe it, but it eventually evolved into something much more passionate and heated. Iwa-chan took control of the kiss, doing as he pleased, but let's just say he knew exactly what I wanted. He had me unconsciously moaning. He'd crack a wide smile every time I did. I was so flustered I didn't even care, I just wanted him to kiss me more. This was only my second time kissing someone, so it was still a relatively new experience. Iwa-chan moved us backwards towards his bed, keeping the kiss intact. My calves hit the bed frame, forcing me to sit down as Iwa-chan pressed forward. It broke our kiss, but that didn't stop him, or me. He sat one leg on the bed, beside me, while he stood on his other. He trailed his hand up my arm and to my face slowly. Every inch of skin he explored felt like fireworks setting off on my skin. The sensation was so great and unusual, it was something I'd always dreamed of, but even my dreams didn't compare to what I was feeling right now. Iwa-chan gently brushed his nose against mine, causing me to lean forward. He reconnected our lips, laying me against the sheets. The sound of our kiss and my occasional moans echoed through the mostly silent room. Iwa-chan's deep breaths weren't audible enough to escape the surrounding area. I was left surprised after our kiss. Iwa-chan pulled back just enough so that our noses were still pressed against each other. The more he pulled back, the more I found myself leaning forward into his touch. Damn, you're cute, he whispered, finally pulling away. I sat there a heated mess, looking up at him. Gosh, you're such a tease, I mumbled under my breath, turning away from him. I'd love to keep this up, but my mom said dinner will be ready soon. I still continued to pout. Now, don't be like that, Iwa-chan said before tackling me backwards on the bed. His weight on top of me forced my giggles out. He rested his head on the side of my neck. His breaths were warm but tickled like heck, so I continued giggling like a fool. Suddenly there was a knock on the door. It popped open with Thomas standing in the frame. Darby said to tell you boys to go. He paused mid-sentence upon seeing us in this position. Dinner time, Iwa-chan grunted, pulling himself off of me. All right, cool. He stretched a hand out to me, helping me up off of the bed. Thomas' confused look faded and he just shrugged it off before heading down the stairs. When Iwa-chan, Kaido and I reached the kitchen, Shailene was already sat at the table talking to Darby and Thomas. When everyone took their seats, the table was fully packed. My, this is the first time we had a full table in years. Shailene's eyes immediately landed on me. So what's been up with you two the past year? Shailene asked Iwa-chan and Kaido. Nothing more than what you already know. Kaido shrugged, taking a bite of his food. Her gaze was now focused on Iwa-chan. Don't give me the same answer, she warned playfully, yet threatening. I mean, what is there to tell? Iwa-chan asked, seemingly frustrated. Tell me how you met the boy. Toru. She corrected herself satirically. Well, we go to the same school. We started talking when we were bunked together during that school trip I took, and slowly became friends from then on. Iwa-chan said, leaving a heap of details out, but the more I think about it, it was probably for the better. Sounds like a love story, Shailene teased. Little did she know. By the way, how did everything go today? I was so busy talking to Shailene I forgot to ask. That very moment she noticed the cuts on both Iwa-chan and I. Goodness, what happened to you two? He didn't hurt you, did he? She sat down her fork dramatically. Shailene looked from Iwa-chan and Darby confused. I had a little run-in with some deadbeats. I lowered my head, not wanting to have this conversation. Toru, his dad hit him with a plate. Iwa-chan spoke for me. Shailene scrunched up her eyebrows, still confused, while Kaido and Thomas looked concerned. I knew this was a bad idea, Darby said, disapprovingly. It's fine. We got what we were looking for, and with minor injuries. It doesn't hurt either. Shailene seemed like she was finally getting an idea of what was going on. So your parents abuse you? She asked, hesitantly. It's just my father. My mother left, well, he scared her away rather. She just left you? Shailene raised a curious brow. She thought it was for the best. I don't think she knew what would happen though. I hated unearthing these memories, but I didn't want to be rude by ignoring their questions. Especially since I'm the guest here. Iwa-chan sat there staring at her with a judgmental look. The rest of dinner wasn't as awkward as I was expecting it to be. Shailene really knew how to hold a conversation. The way she spoke when she wasn't goofing around was very mature and womanly. Your sister is very interesting, I said to Iwa-chan as we headed up the stairs. You haven't seen anything yet, he said in disappointment, enthusiastically. I didn't know what he meant by that. What do you mean? She may not look it, but she's actually big on video games. Her? I said, taken back in surprise. Yup. He nodded, opening his bedroom door. She may look calm and collected on the outside, but when she's playing her games it's like she's a whole other person. If we're lucky we'll be in for a show tonight, he informed, hopping backwards onto his bed. He lifted his head to look at me for a moment. He patted the open space beside him. I shyly made my way over, and before I even realized it I was being pulled on top of him. The mattress shook as my body toppled over onto his. He groaned from my weight, but it soon turned into laughter. He wrapped his large arms around me, caging me into his chest. His heart-melting stare was overwhelming, so I hid my face in the corner of his neck. His smell was amazing as ever. It grows on me more and more every time I smell it. For some strange reason it makes me feel safe. I'm becoming infatuated with it almost. Iwa-chan brushed his nose against my cheek before adjusting our positions. We were both lying on our sides, facing each other. Here, lay on your stomach. I turned around face down on the bed. The spot next to me sank as he closed some distance between us. His hands gently brushed up and down my back. It was so relaxing, I felt electricity traveling through my body. His hand eventually made its way under my shirt. Every inch of me his fingers touched shivered. The tingles were so intense I was already on my way to falling asleep. I would have dozed off by now, but the room was so quiet I could hear noises from all over the house. I sat up with my shirt still halfway up. Iwa-chan looked at me curiously as I tried to figure out which direction the loudest noise was coming from. "What's up?" It's nothing, just a little noisy is all." "It's probably her," Iwa-chan said, unamused. "Follow me." He grunted, getting out of bed. We left the room and entered the hall. Iwa-chan continued to Shailene's room and stood next to the door. "Listen," was all he said, motioning me to come up to the door. I sat there and listened closely like he told me to, and I heard Shailene yelling. There would be moments of silence, then all of a sudden she'd yell loads of profanities. I turned my confused, shocked gaze to Iwa-chan to see him grinning cheek to cheek. "What's she yelling about?" "She gets like this when she's playing video games." So this is what Iwa-chan meant earlier. I pressed my ear against the door and listened in once more. "Airg, you fucking piece of shit. I'm going to rip the skull from your body," she screamed, followed by what sounded like a punch to something. "Choke on that, you motherfucking dick sucker. She takes her gaming far too serious," Iwa-chan stated, raising his brows in pity. "Guess what she asked for on her 15th birthday?" Ugh. I sat there thinking of the most logical answer. A gaming console. No. She asked for freaking soundproof walling. At first our parents thought it was to block out the sound from the rest of the house, but turns out she just wanted it so they wouldn't hear her swearing her brains out. I did my best to hold in my laughter, but failed. "It started already?" Kaido asked, coming up the stairs. "Yep, she's going at it like usual." Kaido came over to the door and listened for a moment. The things she was shouting were so vile it felt like my innocence was being stolen. "Cover your ears, bro," Iwa-chan said to Kaido, jokingly. "I'm not a kid anymore." Kaido scrunched up his nose. Iwa-chan and I eventually went back to his room, not wanting to be spotted by the crazy woman. We spent hours watching movies and cuddling. Iwa-chan wrapped an arm around me while I snuggled against his side. "You're like a big snuggly blanket," I muttered against him. "Oh yeah." He tightly wrapped himself around me, squeezing me in his arms. It was hard to catch my breath laughing so much. We both eventually wore ourselves out. Iwa-chan left the room to go take a shower while I did the same. Not at the same time, of course. Despite us being so close, I still wasn't ready for something like that. Not to mention Iwa-chan's family don't even know him and I are a thing, so it would be a little odd if anyone saw us entering at the same time. As I was collecting my clothes for the shower, I realized I still didn't have that many shirts to wear. We managed to scavenge a few pieces of clothing at my house, but I don't think it'll be enough, especially now that I'm living here. "What's on your mind?" Iwa-chan asked, lying on the bed. "Not much. I was thinking that I may need to buy an extra set of clothes or two," I told him, shifting my gaze to the stack in my hand. "I could take you out sometime and buy you new clothes. I don't want you to spend your money on me," I responded, feeling bad. "You're my boyfriend, I want to spend money on you. Plus it's not like I don't have the money to." He gestured to his entire room. He had so many expensive-looking pieces of furniture placed around. "You can't deny me that." His voice went lower. He had a point. "If it makes you happy, then I'm happy." See. The next morning Iwa-chan accidentally woke me as he got out of the bed. I noticed the sun rising when I sat up in bed to stretch. "Sorry, did I wake you?" he asked, worried, as he returned to my side. "It's fine. We have school anyway, right?" I replied, still half asleep. He smiled and kissed my cheek before leaving the room. After getting ready, I headed downstairs for breakfast. Kaido and Iwa-chan were already seated waiting on Darby to finish cooking. I joined them, taking a seat next to Iwa-chan and Kaido. We chatted about an assortment of random things while waiting. "So, when do you want to go shopping for clothes?" Iwa-chan asked, leaning on the table. Boy, never thought I'd hear that sentence come out of my mouth. He shook his head, making Kaido and I laugh. "What's this I hear about shopping for clothes?" Shailene asked, walking into the room. "Doesn't concern you." Iwa-chan tried to dismiss her. No, I'm interested, do tell," she demanded, leaning on the table like Iwa-chan. "Iwa-chan and I were planning on getting me some new clothes." "Oh yeah? Sounds like fun. When do we leave? She asked, with a smirk. Note. It's too late to stop me. Plus, I know where the best stores are. Back when I was still in high school, my friends and I would always find the best places to shop. I guess she had a point, but she could have easily told Iwa-chan where to shop. Iwa-chan groaned, dropping his head to the table. We're leaving at 5. Wait, but I have work this afternoon. Well then, you'll have to leave early. She said, now relaxing into the back of her chair. She's totally crazy, but I didn't want to argue with her. Hopefully Sandra won't be upset with me for cutting my day short after spending so much time away from my job. Speaking of high school, we have to get going soon. Kaido said impatiently, nudging his head to the clock. Sorry kids, I'll have breakfast on the table in a sec. The others remained silent, so I chimed in. It's fine, you don't need to rush. She gave me an appreciative smile while the others glanced at me curiously. Gosh, you guys need to learn some manners. I unintentionally blurted out. It was meant more as a thought. Toru's got some spice in him after all. Iwa-chan teased. My cheeks lit up a bright pink. Shailene just smirked. Sorry, I just don't want to be late for school. Summer break is just around the corner and I want to have the best grade possible before then. Just then Darby sat the breakfast on the table. There was a variety of breakfast foods. Fruit salad, toast, bacon, eggs, and a carton of orange juice. It all looked so tasty. Help yourselves. Darby said happily before disappearing into the next room. After the delicious breakfast we headed for school. Though before we left the house Shailene made it known that we would definitely be going shopping today. She said it was a good opportunity to get to know me better. That made me a little worried. I was silent pretty much the whole time during lunch. I just didn't know how to talk to Iwa-chan's friends. I caught them glancing over at me from time to time. I could tell they still felt bad about what happened, but I still had nothing to say to them. Not really interested in their conversation, I turned my gaze to the other side of the room, spotting Kaido on his way over. Yo, remember when we left school the other day, after Elaine was called into the principal's office? He started, almost out of breath. Yeah. Iwa-chan looked at him confused. Well, my friend told me they were suspending Elaine. He announced excitedly. Really? She's not here? Iwa-chan asked, looking around hopeful. No. And from what I've heard going around, she was actually supposed to be expelled for manipulating the school board, but her mother begged them to keep her in. She promised that if there was ever any more trouble she'd pull her out. Her father should have pulled out, then none of this would have ever been a problem. Morita fired out bluntly. Everyone nearby had a laugh. I'm not a fan of cruel jokes such as that one, but I could help but to crack a smile. Bad Toru. Ooh man, that's savage. This is actually great news. Iwa-chan responded happily. Yeah, I agree. I didn't know what to make of the situation. I'm glad she's gone, but it doesn't affect me much. I was already done with her. Though, I guess it'll make things somewhat easier now that we don't have to see her for a while. See? If we'd stayed just a little longer that day, we would have been able to see her reaction. Kaido whined in disappointment. Yeah, I take the blame for that. Iwa-chan waved at him dismissively. The day was going very well so far, but what had me worried was going back to work after all of this time and telling Sandra I have to cut the day short. That and our shopping adventure with the Queen of Chaos. So how long is Elaine's suspension? I remembered to ask on the ride to work. Well, since summer break is just about here, her suspension will continue a couple months after school begins. That's music to my ears. Iwa-chan mumbled blandly. Him and Kaido continued the conversation while my thoughts drifted elsewhere. I was preparing myself for work. What'll happen when I walk through that front door? My hands were beginning to feel clammy. We're here. Iwa-chan notified, pulling into the driveway of the cozy-looking diner. I took a large breath before stepping out of the car. You'll be fine? Iwa-chan assured, resting a hand on my shoulder. I looked up to him and smiled. My hand landed on the handle of the door and waited there for a long second. I pushed it open, taking a step inside. The sound of the bell got Sandra's attention. Her eyes lit up when she realized it was me who came in. My, it's been so lonely here without ya. Sandra greeted in her heavy southern accent while taking my hands in hers. A bashful smile captured my appearance, my eyes drifting to the side. I'm happy to have ya back, she said, releasing her grip and giving me a friendly smile. I'm happy to be back. And I'm very sorry for the extended break. Where ya been all this time? She asked the one question I was hoping she wouldn't. I started awkwardly. I didn't want to tell her about what happened. I myself am trying to leave it in the past. Well, some things were going on in my personal life. I don't really want to talk about it. I explained hesitantly, playing with my fingers out of habit. Oh, it's all right, you don't gotta tell me nothing. She ended the conversation with a dismissive wave. I was relieved, though I didn't show it. It seemed like she already had an idea of what was going on, though it could have just been me. I settled down behind the counter after putting on my little apron. No one was coming in. With all of that free time, my mind was going over all of the ways I could ask to leave work early. I really didn't want to upset Sandra, but I didn't want to upset Shailene either. I mean, she already seems to dislike me as is. I almost leaped back a foot when Suna snapped me out of my thoughts as she leaned on the counter. You doing okay? Suna asked in a dull, yet friendly sort of way. I nodded in response. Her question took me by surprise since it seems like she doesn't care about others much, let alone start a conversation. A sheepish smile crept onto my face when I realized she was stepping out of her shell. I'm just glad everything is settled. I sighed in relief. You were a big help, Suna, and I've been meaning to thank you for that. I told her, my smile growing. I was just doing what I felt was right. She replied, wearing a dull half smile. I turned my head when the door behind us opened. Sandra stepped out and walked into the main room. I felt now was the perfect time to ask her. Sandra. Yeah. She responded, looking over, and coming up to the counter. I know I've just returned after all of this time, and I don't want it to seem like I'm taking advantage, but, can I head home early? I hesitantly squeezed out. You don't have to include today in the paycheck. Sure. She immediately agreed without much thought. What's the occasion? My friend's sister is over and wants to go shopping. I frowned at the thought. Shit. Suna swore under her breath, turning away from the counter. What's wrong? I asked, turning my gaze to her. I was planning on cutting my day short. If I do that now, the diner won't have any extra hands around. This is what I'll do. When you two are ready to head out, I'll close up for the day. I was actually planning on heading out to hang out with Izuki and some friends for drinks. She told us, leaning over on the counter like Suna had earlier. I was suddenly feeling a lot less guilty. Suna looked relieved as well. I nodded in agreement. Iwa-chan came to pick me up after I texted him, telling him what time I was getting off work. The sun started to set, but there was still enough daylight for us to get around. Let's go. Shailene pressed before we'd even made our way through the front door. I don't even have my wallet. Iwa-chan told her as he walked past. Who's paying for the movie? She asked, tilting her head with an innocent look. Iwa-chan turned to look at her with a what the hell sort of look spread across his face. You guys are going out for a movie? Kaido asked as he stepped into view. Apparently so. Iwa-chan shrugged, still wearing a confused look. That very moment a giggle escaped Shailene. Is it okay if I tag along? Just as Iwa-chan began to speak, Shailene interrupted him. I won't be in town forever. We siblings should spend some time together. Yeah, says the one who ignored us throughout most of our school years. Iwa-chan rolled his eyes. Guilty. She admitted with a grin. We got our stuff and headed out to the car. Iwa-chan was driving, Shailene called shotgun, and Kaido and I sat in the back. Darby came out to the door, telling everyone to stay safe and have fun, you know, in a very cliché motherly sort of way. This was something I hadn't experienced in a while, not since my mother left. So it made me feel bubbly inside. During the drive, Shailene wouldn't quit messing with the radio. She constantly changed between stations searching for one that she liked. She finally did, but only after about 30 minutes. Despite her and Iwa-chan being so different, they had a very similar taste in music. Both of them were singing like goofs, getting very into the song, like Iwa-chan often does. Kaido and I laughed the whole time. They enjoyed our reaction and kept going. Before I knew it, we arrived in the parking lot of a large strip mall, which was a series of connected buildings forming a crescent shape. There were supermarkets, cafes, bakeries, clothing stores, and a theater among many other things. So where are we heading first? Kaido questioned, looking at the impressive view from the car window. We're going to do what we initially came here to do, and that's buy Toru some new clothes. Iwa-chan answered in a stern tone before exiting the car. All of us stepped out into the cool yet muggy air and headed towards the clothing store suggested by Shailene. The setting of the sun and all of the distant car noises made for a relaxing atmosphere. I was having trouble keeping up with the group. I cursed myself for being so short. Kaido and I are around the same height, yet he had no problem staying in pace with everyone. I didn't say anything cause I didn't want to bother them by slowing them down. Just then Iwa-chan glanced back, citing my poor state. He offered a patient smile before breaking away from Shailene and Kaido to come over to my side. He wrapped an arm around my shoulder and walked alongside me. This little sign of affection had me cherry red from head to toe. A shy smile broke out on my face as I looked up to meet Iwa-chan's eyes. "Hurry you guys," Shailene said, raising her voice as she waved us over. My eyes lit up as we walked through the glass doors of the clothing store. There were shelves as far as the eye could see filled with shirts, jackets, pants, you name it. This was shocking to me, but for everyone else it was like an average day in the park. My gaze drifted off to every end of the room as I walked through the store astonished. Before I knew it, Shailene was already picking out clothes for me to wear. "How about this?" she asked, lifting up a gray t-shirt with words reading Yahoo across the front, along with a pair of washed-out blue jeans. "I think I might actually like it," I said, reaching for the clothes only to have them yanked away. "You can try them on in the dressing room after we're done shopping." How many things do you plan on getting?" "Just a few more things." That was a total lie. Every time we passed something that she thought I might like, she'd toss it into the cart. Am I really going to try all of this stuff on? I questioned nervously. She just smiled, confirming my worries. "We're going to be here all night." Iwa-chan picked out a couple things he thought might look good on me as well. I really liked them. Kaido tossed in a shirt that he found funny. I didn't decline, in fact even I had a little laugh. They were all kind enough to spend their money on me, so I couldn't tell them what to buy and what not to. Heck, I didn't even want to. The last time I went shopping like this was when I was still just a boy. My parents took me shopping whenever they'd go together. I faintly remember my small self running through the aisles, occasionally playing hide and seek with my mom. Looking back on it now, that was probably a dumb idea. I was lucky I didn't get lost. There were so many pieces that caught my eye as we browsed through the huge selection, but the cart was already packed, so I didn't dare ask for anything. I didn't stare too long either, cause if I did, Shailene would automatically pluck the clothing item from the shelf and drop it into the cart, even if I wasn't particularly interested in said item. I would just pout at her. One thing really stood out though, something I couldn't ignore. A sky blue t-shirt with a gray cartoony alien design on the front hung on a rack just in the distance. I jogged off for a bit, leaving the others slightly confused. I got up real close and admired the shirt for a moment before pulling it off the shelf and carrying it over. "Can I get this? Even if it's the only thing I get, I really want it," I asked, hopping in place like a little kid. Iwa-chan let out a breathy laugh and smiled. "I'll get you the shirt, dude," he said, ruffling my hair, making its brown color more apparent in the light. Shailene looked a little confused, probably wondering why I liked the shirt as much as I did. "He's not going to try all of this stuff on, is he?" "Of course he is." She rolled her eyes, turning the cart around, heading towards the dressing rooms. Iwa-chan clenched his fist and sighed, just barely able to contain himself. I couldn't blame him. The cart was practically spilling over. After several minutes of me modeling clothes for Shailene, Iwa-chan finally had it. "Can we leave now? Look, I'll just buy him the whole damn cart." "You're no fun." She pouted and stomped her foot in a childish manner as a joke. Shailene had me try on a few more pieces before we finally checked out. My eyes almost burst out of socket when I saw the price. Over $2,000 on clothes. I guess money really isn't an issue for them. Iwa-chan didn't think it was a lot, but rather a lot of clothes. There were so many bags and Iwa-chan was going to carry them all, but of course I stepped in and carried as much as I could hold. About 90% of them did belong to me after all. Iwa-chan bought an undershirt, Kaido bought a pair of brown panda PJs, and Shailene bought the other 8%. On our way to the car, Iwa-chan's phone went off. His hands were full, so he wasn't able to answer it. Shailene plucked the phone from his jean pocket and answered it. He just scowled at her. "Hello," Shailene answered in a cheery tone. We all stood in place, listening to Shailene's end of the conversation. "Oh, hi Mom." "Not yet." Sure. I'll tell him." "All right, love you, bye." She hung up. We waited expectantly as Shailene slipped the phone back into Iwa-chan's pocket. "Well, Iwa-chan pressed, tilting his head in curiosity. Mom told me to ask you if you could pick up some groceries. She's running low and hasn't had time to get out to the store. All right, there are a few things I have to buy anyway. Iwa-chan grunted out as he lifted the heavy bags of clothes into his car. The store we were going to was part of the strip mall, so it was within walking distance. On the way to the front door, a man walked up to Shailene and started flirting with her, and he was good at it too. He looked as if he was in his late college years. He had short brown hair, and a pair of eyes that rivaled the sun's rays. Shailene was just as much of a flirt as he was, only she was messing around, toying with him. I think the man knew this but continued working his charm until he finally got her to write her number on his arm. Iwa-chan looked just as grumpy and impatient as ever. He eventually got so fed up that he entered the store without her. Kaido and I followed behind. I'll meet you guys at the exit. Kaido notified us before disappearing behind the many shelves of neatly placed items. What did you need to buy? I asked Iwa-chan, studying his towering appearance. Just some deodorant, some snacks and a drink. Moments later Shailene came strutting in, handing a slip of paper to Iwa-chan. It was a list of things Darby requested, I guess. There was a drink dispenser near the entrance. That was the first thing off of his list. A grin grew on my face when Iwa-chan bought 2 bottles of lemonade and handed one to me. It was like our thing now. The drink was so cold streams of water drained off the sides of the bottle. Where's mine? Shailene asked, in a very offended manner. I could tell she was joking though. The very moment I saw what Shailene was placing in the cart, I started to get the feeling she was a compulsive shopper. I looked between her, Iwa-chan, and the cart, my expression holding nothing but shock. She was literally scraping boxes of candy and snacks off the shelves like a freaking backhoe. What do you plan on doing with all of this? Are you taking a trip to the center of the earth? 'Cause with the amount of weight you will be putting on, you will be sinking through more than just the damn floorboards of the house. Iwa-chan said in a serious tone. I broke out laughing, choking on my lemonade. Her eyes narrowed. Oh ha ha. Very funny. She said sarcastically, snatching the box of Oreos out of Iwa-chan's hand and stuffing them into the cart. Well, someone's laughing. Iwa-chan gestured to me, a satisfied smirk overtaking his lips. As much as I tried containing myself, I was reduced to tears. Here, hold this. I've gotta go to the bathroom. Iwa-chan told us, handing his drink to Shailene. I watched as he jogged off into the distance, disappearing from view. Just me and you now, little boy, she said, putting emphasis on the Y. I smiled at her. We began picking up the groceries Darby asked for, tossing out small talk every once in a while. What got you into video games? You seem very passionate about them. I questioned her, hoping to quell the silence. Well, she sighed, turning to me. High school acquaintances, I suppose. She answered very vaguely. Also, what do you mean by passionate? And how do you even know I play video games? She asked while raising a brow. While waiting for my answer, she drank from Iwa-chan's bottle. Well, I sorta heard you playing from outside your door. Her eyes widened and her cheeks flushed. Oh God. You heard that? She asked, desperate for an answer. I nodded with a sheepish smile. Those bastards. She muttered, holding her forehead. She looked back and forth, probably looking for either Iwa-chan or Kaido. Neither were in sight. She groaned, frustrated. I had my walls lined with soundproof walling, and all of these years no one mentioned a thing about it not working. She bit her lip. I could tell she was embarrassed, so I changed the subject a little. What's your favorite game? I asked, tilting my head curiously. I don't know, I like shooters, so maybe the Modern Warfare titles. I knew next to nothing about those games, but I just nodded my head. The small talk continued, that was until Shailene said something that caught me off guard. So, you and Hajime, huh? She said nonchalantly, leaning against a nearby fridge. That sentence caused me major panic. Like I could feel myself shaking in my shoes. It felt as if a bullet had shot right through me. She couldn't be talking about us, as a couple, could she? I mean, no one knows other than Iwa-chan and myself. Me and Iwa-chan? What about us? I tried playing it off, hoping I was just misunderstanding her. Let's just say it wasn't very convincing. Don't try to act clueless. You know exactly what I'm talking about. She shook her head in disapproval. I tried to muster up something to say, but my brain was thrown in the washer. I wasn't able to think straight. Don't think I didn't notice. How did you score a man like him? He's very hard to approach, let alone get close to. During my later high school years I watched him act like a huge grump towards everyone who came up to him. Only a few got close enough for him to keep them around. Even then, he was still a jerk to them. And it seems nothing's changed, he's still that grumpy cactus I've known him to be. But when he's with you it's like he's a whole different man. He's kind and caring towards you. That's something he's never really shown, so it was easy to pick up on. I played with my fingers nervously, my heart still racing. The expression on her face was unreadable, I didn't know whether she thought it was acceptable or not. Do you love him? Oh, of course. More than you could ever know. That's good to know. Why you're okay with it? I'm okay with it. Does that really matter though? If you two are happy together then that should be enough. She said, offering another smile. I can tell Hajime's happy being with you. As I said earlier, he acts much differently around you than when he's around anyone else. I couldn't hide the blush creeping onto my face. Just as the conversation ended, loud noises started coming from a couple aisles over. It sounded like people shouting. Ooh, I love drama. Shailene said excitedly, clapping her hands. Before I knew it she was on her way to the aisle with the source of the noise. I was surprised by the person that stood there in front of us. It was Suna. It seemed as if her and another girl, one I've seen around school, were in a fight. I'm not telling you again, I won't pay for that. Suna yelled, clearly upset. You break it, you pay for it. The girl responded in a snooty tone. You bumped into me. Suna yelled, using hand gestures. You're a lying bitch. The girl huffed, flicking her head away from Suna. Suna scoffed at her. Their heated argument was drawing a lot of attention, it even pulled Kaido out of the woodworks. One of the workers came over. What's the problem here? If you two don't settle down we're going to have to throw you out. This asshole wasn't watching where she was walking and bumped into me, dropping a load of crap on the floor. Now she wants me to pay for it. I have a car to pay off. I can't afford to spend it on some rich chick. Ooh, I like that spunk. Shailene came waltzing into the fray. Look, I can pay for all the damaged goods, so you girls can be on your way. She told them as she pulled out her wallet. She handed two $100 bills to the worker trying to break up the fight. He nodded and walked off. Suna and the other girl studied Shailene closely, wearing looks of suspicion. The moment she looked this way her eyes locked. Toru. She said my name, confused. Hey Suna. I tossed a little wave. I didn't expect to see you here. Neither did I. She raised her brows. My parents forced me to head to the store in their stead. I'm trying to get it done early so I have spare time. Why are you shopping all the way out here? Kaido questioned, popping out of the dissipating crowd. I live in the area, idiot. She rolled her eyes. Kaido shrugged at Suna's hostility. Right. You guys are friends? Shailene asked, very confused. Kaido nodded. We're going to see a movie, you have to tag along. I left work early so I could have some free time after all of this, maid labor, so I'll pass. Don't be that way, we're all friends, right? Shailene pressed, taking hold of Suna's hands. Suna looked up to me wearing a look of distress. I just smiled at her, there was no denying Shailene what she wanted. Suna pondered for a moment. Well, I do technically owe you for earlier. All right. Just then I felt a hand land on my back. I quickly snapped my head back to see Iwa-chan, a soft smile resting upon his face. Where's my drink? He asked, staring at Shailene. She looked back for a split second, placing the now empty cup in his hands. He looked down to the cup and back to her with scrunched brows. Did you? Iwa-chan started, only to be interrupted by Shailene. This girl's coming with us to the movies. She said, completely ignoring Iwa-chan. He gave up. I didn't know you were here. Iwa-chan said in surprise. Yeah, well, I am. Suna looked off to the side. Suna followed us as we finished the rest of our shopping. We all walked off to the large illuminated movie theater after dropping the groceries off in the car. Shailene and Kaido were just as hyper as ever, joking around. Iwa-chan's energy was zapped. He was beginning to look like a zombie in the presence of Shailene. The only time those two settled down was when they were seated in the theater, though there were still occasional whispers throughout the movie. I made sure to grab the seat next to Iwa-chan. I wanted to be as close to him as possible. It seemed he wanted the same, cause when the lights dimmed he took hold of my hand. I enjoyed the movie despite being distracted by Iwa-chan caressing my hand like half the time. We decided on which movie we were going to watch at the last second, so I was pleased with our choice. After the movie we all hung out outside the theater and talked until Suna had to head home. She really opened up during the 20 minutes of conversation. She told us about the crash she had a while back, and how her parents are making her pay off the car that she and her brother totaled. They became a lot more strict with her after the incident. That's the reason they have her doing so much labor. The car ride back to the Iwaizumi's home was dead silent, which was odd since Shailene was in the car and all. I guess she wore herself out. She was also the only one drinking alcohol, which I found funny as she kept insisting on being the one to drive home. How was it? Darby questioned as we walked through the front door. It was fine. Iwa-chan responded with a half-smile crossing his face, dropping the bags onto the living room coffee table. It was rad. Kaido answered with a beaming smile. I second that. Shailene mumbled under her sleep, making Darby giggle. Well, I'm glad you kids had fun, she said before heading to the kitchen to check on dinner. Iwa-chan, Kaido and I flocked to the living room and took over the TV while Thomas and Shailene talked about politics and other stuff I had no interest in. Thomas and I were just about to eat. Are you guys hungry? Darby asked, looking between us. Yeah, I didn't eat much while we were out, Kaido answered, walking towards the kitchen. I'll have some too, if that's okay, I replied, trying not to be too forward. Sure you will. Darby chuckled as she placed a hand on my shoulder. As she was guiding me to the kitchen she looked over her shoulders before asking Shailene and Iwa-chan if they were hungry. No, but I'll join you guys, Iwa-chan replied, following behind us. Yeah, same, Shailene softly groaned. We all took a seat at the table despite some of us not being hungry. It made the place feel more homely having everyone together like this. Kaido and I discussed his interest in returning to sports. I could tell this change was heavily driven by the fact that the family started giving him the attention he needed. It surprised me how much he changed. Not long ago he could have been mistaken for a dim, faint light. Now he shines bright like the sun, albeit he still has his moody, sassy moments. Tuning out of my thoughts, my attention locked onto the current table topic. Our anniversary is soon. I'll have to take you somewhere special. He smiled, taking her hands into his. Speaking of love, Shailene started, turning her attention to me. I didn't know you two were an item. A loud silence captured the room, suddenly making it feel haunted. Every pair of eyes in the room landed on Iwa-chan and I. Not a single sound was made other than the one from Darby's fork being set on the table. I was still trying to figure out if Shailene really said that aloud. My heart in a race, sweat building upon my shaking skin, I panicked. I didn't know whether to run for the hills or sit and be slaughtered like a chicken. Darby glanced back and forth between Shailene and Iwa-chan. Shailene's expression was flat for a while until she realized what was going on. Shit, was it a secret? She sat forward, a look of worry crossing her face. I looked at Iwa-chan with pure horror. He seemed confused, probably cause Shailene was the one who outed us. Is there something you're not telling us, son? Thomas raised a brow.